Welcome back to season 3 of the Go to Masters podcast, where we talk to GTM leaders from some of the fastest growing businesses out there, and we bring you what they've learned through their experience. And joining us today is Jesse Morris, tech founder and global revenue operations leader. Thank you for being here today, Jesse. Do you think you could share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Most definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a math geek at heart. I always say I'm a nerd. And ultimately, my passion is all around solving problems, big problems for companies that drive value. I mean, that's ultimately it. And so, I've been in the RevOps space now for 10 plus years. I was a sales rep before that. So I'm a little bit unique probably in the sense I've got the left brain, right brain capability. And now I just recently founded a tech company as well. So, which is the second one I've founded in my career. But ultimately, for me, it's all about how do we, drive value for companies and leverage good business process, technology, data, and information to actually help do that.
Awesome. That's great. And then, yeah, the point about from sales to all the way to RevOps leadership, that's quite a journey. And like from our own research, we saw that your journey spans not just from sales to RevOps, but also through finance, across SaaS, analytics, leadership, and we were just curious about the mindset that helped you stay ahead in these industries and never stop evolving. So what sort of led to that?
I think it's a couple of things. I mean, one, passion and curiosity. I mean, ultimately, I love what I do. I'm one of those people, like, I genuinely like working. I genuinely like getting into trying to solve big problems and problems that maybe people tend to shy away from. I lean into. I almost look for, like, the more messed up things are, the more interested, excited I get. I think that's how I built a lot of my career in general. Is just trying to do things differently, look at things from different perspectives. So a lot of it's curiosity. And I think the other thing too is, it's the Wayne Gretzky quote of, like, skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. And if you look at my career, I've moved at the right times. And maybe, you could say you could move a little bit earlier, but generally, at different points, like, it just was strategic. And a lot of it was around, like, I think about more about what skill sets I have versus, which tie into background and capabilities. But ultimately, it's like, okay, these are the skill sets I have. How can I apply those in different ways? And then what skill sets do I not have that I feel like I need to get to where I want to go? So a lot of it's, I mean, goal. I'm a very driven person, and nowadays it's more. I'm competitive. I was, high school athlete, and always just love that. I was more competitive with people. Now I'm more self-competitive. It's more of like, how do I continue to iterate myself and continue to learn and push myself to new capabilities? And ultimately, a lot of that comes out of failure, putting yourself in positions to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. But that it's all in a willingness to lean into things that are uncomfortable, embrace the suck. I've heard that expression. I like that a lot. But there is something to that, and for me, I think that's where a lot of this has come from. Is like, I have done a lot of things in my career that were not necessarily. I mean, you look at it and you're like, that wasn't success, but it was the big stepping stone to get to where I wanted to go. And I think it was a willingness to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, push the realms of possibilities, even for yourself, but also for where things are headed as well.
Perfect. Love it. And I think I'm going to take away 3 things from that. One is to, stay curious all the time. And the other is to, stay competitive and finally be open-minded to what's happening around you, what's happening from people around you, from the market around you, and so on. So that's like beautiful life lesson out there. And why don't we probably dig a little bit deeper into one of those roles, right? RevOps. And you've led RevOps at a global scale and you built teams from scratch. So what's been like the most defining moment in your career journey so far?
Finding moment. That's it. I mean, I think there's multiple little moments. I don't know if there's like this pinnacle. My most recent role, I was leading an org of 31 people, global team. I think 2/3 were based in Europe. A lot of international, lots of travel. That role, no question. I would say I learned a ton just because the cultural aspects of things. There's a lot of security requirements in Europe that we don't have in the U.S. That's pretty impactful. I think a couple big things. Like, ultimately, when you look at the career, again, it's building on skill sets. And so, when I was first starting off in RevOps 10 plus years ago, I didn't really even know how to solve problems back then. it was really a belief in my own brain capability, but it wasn't necessarily a belief in the knowledge that I had. It was more of, I'll figure this out. Nowadays it's more of, it's less about the problems. Like I have this core belief that there's really no problem I can't solve. And maybe that's, you can say hubris or whatever, but I think generally, leaning into that belief opens up a realm of possibilities. Now, the harder part of what I've done and do now is it's the leadership side. It's how do you change management? How do you lead people on journeys, get buy-in across organizations? That's the hard part. I mean, ultimately, getting everybody rowing in the same direction, not only in RevOps, but actually like your job in RevOps is to support cross-functionally. And that is not an easy role. There are very few people, I think, that have the personality to be able to do that. So a lot of, time and energy for me in more recent years has been spent around that piece and honing my skills there and making mistakes and learning from those. And, I think when you look at it, I mean, it really is, I always used to say, like, I remember I would say this expression all the time, like, if I can't go with you, I'm going to go around you. And if I can't go around you, I'm going to go through you. And that was a core belief for me for years. And I still think there's some validity to it, but I would say now it's a little bit more of like, it very rarely works out well when you go through somebody. It just very rarely does. And so sometimes it's actually, now I would say, like, ideally I'm going to go with you on this journey. If I can't go around you, then actually maybe I'm going to take a step back and figure out how to get other people to go with me, in turn get you to go with me. Like, it's just it's a tweak in mentality and mindset. And I think that's a lot of what my journey has been. Is you realize, like, I don't have it all figured out. I've been doing this for a while, but leadership is hard. Change management is hard. Cross collaboration across organizations with different cultures, all the different things that go with it. I mean, it adds so many layers of complexity, different personalities. My team I just got finished leading, like, it was the most diverse team I've ever led. I think they were like somewhere around 15 countries. So it's 31 people from around 15 countries. I mean, and everywhere. Like, you would literally, I mean, it's literally like almost every part of the globe people were on that. That was really fun. I actually really loved it because it gave you perspective, and it allows you to, but it's hard. It makes it challenging. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as, I've had a couple successful exits. That's obviously a good feeling when you have some exits. Some more successful than others, or one more successful than the other. But I think a lot of it, more than anything, has been what I've been more interested in is continuing to solve bigger and bigger problems, or solve maybe the same problem but slightly a different way, because I learned from that as well. But generally for me, it's like I like to continue to be challenged. I always say when I'm interviewing for roles, like, if you want somebody to maintain something, I'm not the guy for you. If you want somebody who's going to push the organization forward and potentially drag the organization forward, ideally, again, with everybody, I'm that person. And I think that's ultimately my reputation is execution. It's the ability to not only have a vision, get buy-in, but it's also the ability to execute on that. And, one of the sayings I've always kind of lived by is ideas are only as good as the action that surrounds it. It's nothing novel. It's not like a revolutionary idea, but ironically, it's very few people, I think, in any working environment can execute on that well.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? And I think as we move more towards like a niche part of the topic in this podcast, I would like to cover something that's like, one of your other ventures or works as well, right? So you authored a book, and I think it's just, it's been a decade since it was published, Data and the World of Today, and what you predicted around, data centric shift, and how businesses and individuals should be aware of how data is collected, how it's influencing the society today back then, and then its impact potentially on the future. So I just want to get your thoughts on, like, given that things have evolved a lot right now, what are your thoughts on data or the role it plays? And do you think what part of what you predicted back then do you think holds true even today?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it was a prediction. It was more actually founded in, reality at that point, but forward-leaning reality. What's interesting, you look at that book, and at that time, I wrote the book in a large way because I didn't know what I didn't know. Again, it was kind of back to saying, like, I was still learning a lot back then, and I was like, I should write a book because it'll allow me to learn. And I also just wanted to see if I could do it. So, but if you look at it, the the decision for me to kind of go all in on data 10, 12 years ago when I left sales, I mean, it was one of the best decisions of my career. And today, like, I am better suited for AI than probably most people out there because of my background, like because I was willing to lean in. Because ultimately, the heart of AI and everything around it is data. I mean, that is the heart of it, and the ability to architect and not only architect systems but architect data, in a way in which allows us to scale organization, centralization, all of that. That is the key right now, especially around agentic AI in particular, automation. All those things center around this. So for me, I mean, ultimately, that's what I'm doing now. And the reason I did it is because I saw a huge opportunity, saw a huge need, and I knew I had the skill set to be able to do it. So that I think holds true today. If you look at the book, like this is really cool. So in the book, 10 years ago, I wrote about the ability for the brain to form new pathways. It was one of the most coolest, I think, capabilities. And I'll just explain that for our users because that's a mouthful. What it ultimately means is, what they started seeing with paraplegics is they put exoskeletons. Exoskeleton is like an Iron Man suit to help people walk, for example. The ability to control that with your brain, that's a pathway. And ultimately, what they were actually seeing is not only the ability to allow the brain to control the unit, but then actually, when they removed the robot, it allowed the brain to actually rebuild a pathway to where you didn't even need the robot anymore. Like that was one of my most favorite things from that book that I wrote about. And you look today, I actually just got in 3 months ago an exoskeleton. So I'm a big hunter. I climb mountains during September. I'm a bow hunter, and I got this exoskeleton. So when I pack out elk meat and I'm like 10 miles in the backcountry, I can, I have something. Instead of eating horses, I actually have this thing that can help me essentially carry massive amounts of weight and it not kill my back in doing it. But it's cool because that concept was around 10 years ago. I mean, I wrote about it in my book and now it's commercially available for the first time. I just got it in, right? And it's the first commercial use of exoskeletons. So that's one example of, that's 10 years ago that happened. So it's interesting to see how long it takes for some of these things, I think, to fully play out. Now, at the same note, I'll say like the rate of change right now is substantially faster
Yeah.
than 10 years ago, like not even in the same realm, right? Like you see the LLM updates every couple weeks, it feels like. I mean, and you see what's actually in there. There's a lot there. But so I think a lot of the concepts I think still apply that were 10 years ago that they are today. I just think the rate of change is higher and the need for data, like, it makes me almost look like, and I mean, you could be like, oh, everybody knew data was going to be big, but not everybody took bets at it. So everybody can say they knew it was going to be big, but if you knew it was going to be big, why didn't you take bets at it? I
Yeah.
went all in on it and, it's worked out well for me so far. And by well for me, it's more of just like it's opened up avenues to continue my curiosity and learning and satisfy my insatiable need to try to solve complicated problems. So that's been awesome.
Perfect, perfect. And I'm definitely going to check out the exoskeleton that you mentioned about definitely after this podcast. But moving more into AI, right? So, and moving more into something that our audiences generally like to hear a lot more about from these podcasts is, the middle ground between where AI meets RevOps and where do you think that's headed? And if there's like a common trap that you think RevOps leaders of today should avoid, what do you think that is?
It's a great question. A couple things. One, I think true RevOps, and I'll just state true RevOps because this is really important because RevOps is a term now that's thrown around a lot. And look, I don't care if you don't have it all. It's okay. But true RevOps, I would say, is really all around data systems, business process, helping drive revenue and outcomes for an organization. That is like when I just want to very clearly state because there's a lot of people that use RevOps more flippantly. That
Yeah.
is like ultimately what I believe. And so at true RevOps, again, data, process, systems, driving outcomes and value for the organization. If that is our North Star, if that's the thing that we're aiming towards, um, that really, I think, is where agentic AI plays in. What I'm seeing a lot right now, and I think this is the challenge with what we're seeing even on the agentic side is you can do a lot of cool things and a lot of cool things. And a lot of my discussions I've been having with my co-founders and some of our prospects and our clients that we've landed here in the first 2 months has been around like, what should we focus on? And it's focus ultimately, I think is my big message, and focus on value. Like that's the key word in all of this is like, don't let the noise of like, well, I can have agents do 127 things doesn't mean you should, right? The bigger thing is like, let's choose one use case and just start there. And that use case should have quantifiable value to the business, right? Because it's a proving ground. So like my engagements these days are very much like proof of concepts. Like, okay, we're going to choose one use case. We're going to maniacally focus on the next 6 weeks on getting that thing out. And then if the organization sees value, great, we can do more things. I think some people are in this like, well, we want to go all in and let's just do everything agentic. And it's like, just deep
Yeah.
breath. It's like, I think people make it seem easier than it is. And part of it's because I think the AI can do some pretty amazing things, but I think we assume that just because it can do some of these things amazing, that it can do everything. Like a great example of this, there's a tool called Replit.
Yep.
Replit's a great tool. It's vibe coding, so you can, code it and you can have a whole application up. I mean, I built an application in 2 weeks. It looks sweet. It's great for getting the ideas out of your brain onto a paper. I think people think though, and even myself, I was naive about this originally. Like I could then take that and put it out into production and you're all of a sudden up and running with a full app. Like that's not reality right now. Like you still then like so it's about expectation. My expectation now is not that Replit, for example, will give me a fully functioning app in 2 weeks. My expectation is it's a way to do mock-ups on a whole different level that we could never have done before, that then I can go to my development team and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And it'll speed up the process by 9 months, but there's still that like incremental improvements. It's not this just like all of a sudden you can do it. And I think so. Part of it I would say is like manage our expectations. The other thing on the agentic side, and this is really important. Like, I don't think people understand to build agentic really well right now, you have to get really specific with sub agents. And so, this idea of like, think about it in a business, in finance. I'll just use a great example here. So, finance has like a payroll specialist, they might have a billing specialist, they might have a commission specialist, they might have a tax specialist. Like, they've got all of these specialists that are doing certain things. Um, it's similar in the agent world of like you want agents to stay focused on one or two specific
Yeah.
tasks. You can still have an agent above kind of managing all of that, but I think people again they get enamored with like, well, I just had this thing do all this, these other things for me. Again, it's expectation, and that. But by going to this more detailed level of agent thing, it requires more work. And so again, it's setting expectation with these RevOps organizations like agentic, no, is not going anywhere. It's only going to continue to get bigger. And I definitely see the need within it, no question. But the other piece of this for sure is, again, pick one use case, focus on the value of that use case. Don't get enamored with the tech stack, et cetera, and then start building out from that point forward.
Got it. Great point. And I completely agree with the Replit point. I think it basically gives everyone, people who are not involved in production development, a fair chance at explaining their ideas better. I think that's the best part about it, more than actually developing something full blown to actually take life. So great thoughts there as well. And I was just super curious about the name Never Ever Ordinary when I was going through your LinkedIn. Do you want to share a little bit more about the name? First of all, love it, and what you kind of do there, and how do you help other organizations as well?
Yeah, great question. Uh, a couple of things. Like one, for me, um, I've always been just interested in kind of not swimming against the current for lack of a better word, but I do think it's like changing perspective. I would say that's ultimately and just looking at things maybe differently than how everything's being looked at. And it doesn't always mean you've got to come up with something unique or but I do think it's this kind of pursuit. I would say it's more of a pursuit of never being ordinary. And it's really more of a willingness and an openness to view not only like business and RevOps and all these things in a different way, but also like human interaction. Like I think it's I don't want to get too like ooh on it, but like there is this cool. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to 16 countries, 15, 16 countries in the last 12 months. I was 5 months gone last year. So and I've just done a lot of traveling and a lot of experience. Like you learn how little you know. Like the more you know, the more you actually realize you don't know. And perspectives are just something that are super powerful. So a lot of it's rooted, I think, in that. And then the other piece, like I've also been fascinated by people that have done extraordinary things. And so the thing like that always sticks in my head is if you know who Sir Edmund Hillary is. Sir Edmund Hillary is one of the first to climb Mount Everest with his Sherpa, and and he always said, ultimately it's people don't set out to do wait, how do I say this right? People don't set out to be extraordinary; they set out to do extraordinary things. And that framing of the mind too is like, it's not about being extraordinary. It's trying to do. It's the try, right? It's all about the try. And so that always stuck with me. So I founded my consulting company when I first got into tech, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And right now, I've been doing RevOps consulting on the side, even while running some of this stuff for years. And I used to do it full time. Now I'll announce here in the next couple of weeks my new tech company. I've got some co-founders, and actually I'm just about to finalize my pre-seed round of funding. But yeah, I mean, I've been using an Ever Ordinary as my main consulting business, and a lot of that's all around go-to-market motions. Really, it's just, again, and it's all focused on driving value using data, systems, business process to help move companies forward.
Awesome. That's great to hear, and wishing you the very best for your upcoming venture as well. And
Thank
if
you.
there's any key piece of advice that you'd like, share with our listeners who aspire to excel in this field of GTM, RevOps, GTM leadership, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I mean, and I've hit on some of these things today, so nothing is revolutionary, but I do think a couple of key things. One, curiosity and passion. Like those two things, I've got sticky notes that I keep around my computer, and 5 sticky notes, and I call them swing thoughts, but it's this idea of like, what are the reinforcements I want to put in my brain throughout a day? And I say like, let passion drive you. Lean into curiosity. Like these are just some of the phrases I have down here. And I think like there's power in those words because there is like well, all of us we can get into states of focus or even patterns of brain mentality. And there's a lot about brain science I won't get into today that I absolutely love. I'm fascinated by neuroscience, but some of it is all around just like patterns that you've told yourself and beliefs. And I don't know if you've ever seen this around smiling, but people that like they did a big study, and it's like people that were depressed that just literally every single day would go to the mirror and smile for at least, I think it was like 10 seconds a day, for like 30 days straight. Like they actually like pulled themselves out, like essentially faked their body into believing positivity. There's something powerful in these thoughts that you're putting into your brain, that you're reinforcing capability. And so I think that's just one piece of advice, is like lean into some of those thoughts, like beliefs. Like belief is a powerful thing. I mean, powerful thing. And the beliefs we tell ourselves, like we're not enough, or I don't have enough skill set, or I'm not made to be an entrepreneur, or whatever that thing is. A lot of ways those are excuses, because that actually, like if I say I'm not made to be an entrepreneur, it actually means I don't have control over it. Versus I wasn't willing to sacrifice what it would take to be an entrepreneur. That's a very different statement. That's an honest statement versus this like passing out. So I think part of it is like an honesty with yourself, and just reinforcement of yourself of like those things, this aspirations in some ways. I think the other thing is like, ultimately, I do believe you are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Like, to some degree
Yeah.
or another, it does have a bearing in your life. And so I do think looking around and going, okay, who am I surrounded with? And look, at the end of the day, your goals might be to be a great dad. There is nothing wrong with that. Be honest with yourself about what your objectives are, and also don't have expectations that don't align to those objectives. So this idea of like, I had an employee a few years ago, and great employee, phenomenal team player. And I was like ready to promote them, and I was going to move them into a leadership role. And I went to them, I was like, hey, what do you want to do? And they're like, honestly, Jesse, like I am really happy with where I'm at right now. I don't have any aspirations. And so I didn't promote him, and he didn't want to. Like it was not his priority in life. And we had a very frank discussion. Whereas I've had other people in the past that like clearly their priority is not work, but then they expect to be promoted, or they expect to make a lot more money, but they aren't willing to sacrifice. So part of it is like, be honest with yourself. And then also think about where you're headed. Like I have very clear 3, 5, 10-year goals. I don't always hit them, but I'm actually not too far off. Like I hit my 10-year goal that I set out at 30, like I hit last year. So at year 9. So, I think do set out goals. And then also, again, like think about the people you surround yourself with and how it goes into what your life goals are, your personal goals, all that. And it's not like selfish, like, I want this person to get me to that place, but it's an acknowledgement that, again, it's like that reinforcement. Like those things do play a factor. And if we aren't honest with ourselves around that, that can play a huge role. So that would be another big thing. And then I think in go-to-market in particular, again, value. I just can't stress value enough. So many people, I was talking to a RevOps leader yesterday. I'm doing some consulting right now on the agentic side for a software company. And the RevOps leader called me, and he's a younger, newer RevOps leader, great guy, like super curious, very teachable, which is one of my favorite things to work with, people that are teachable. And he was just like, Jesse, like, how do I get, he's like trying to get more resources for his team. He's like, how do I do it? I said, you got to build a business case on everything. Like, I was like, if you look at my career, the last 10 years, like I got into RevOps, I literally networked my way into a company from a frontline marketing person all the way up to the CEO. And then I pitched the CEO with a business case to build out a team of 5 people within the software company for something he never had before. And I had never done it. Like, I'd been doing it for a couple of years consulting, but like I had come from a sales background. But a lot of it was focused on value. And I was willing, I think I was telling him yesterday, I was willing to put my neck out on the line for a lot of these things. So value and belief, like, hey, company, I'm recommending we do this project, which is going to require this investment and it will return this. And quite frankly, if it doesn't return this, you can fire me. Like, I didn't always say that directly, but I was willing. I believed in it so much that I was willing to put my neck out there for it. And most people are not willing to do that. And that conviction, that willingness to tie to value, the conviction that you believe so much in yourself, you're willing to put your neck on the line, communicates to the business this concept of like, oh, well, Jesse's willing to fall on his sword for this thing. Clearly, there's belief here. Let's let him have at it. And I think that's the other thing I would say that a lot of people miss. And then the last thing, I've gone longer on this one probably than others, but this is a simple principle, and I will say this, and you'll be like, yeah, duh. But I will say that in my career, very few people do this. And it's this phrase, and it's one of my leadership principles. I have 5 leadership principles, but this one is do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't, communication's your only fallback. Do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't, communication's your only fallback. The important thing behind that actually is not about the, like, I have to hit this deadline. It's more about I'm realizing I don't think I'm going to hit this deadline and I need to communicate ahead of time and set and manage expectations that I can't do that. That one principle, like if you look at the people that I've had to let go from my teams over the years, generally 90% of the time it's around that one piece of things. So I think that was a lot. I think those are the different things I would say that ultimately can help lead into it. And again, if you're solving big problems, you're building on your leadership qualities. Again, back to that goals. You're following that. Do what you say you're going to do. Communications your only fallback. And you get curious. I mean, all of that stuff kind of comes naturally as long as you're pushing you're always pushing yourself. I would say, like, I don't want my learning curve to flatten. The second, like, it's not always going to be straight up, but I still want it to be a good learning curve because I'm leaning in to what's even possible for me.
Great. That's really good, right? And yeah, I think one trait that, like you said, is that gets commonly missed out is the accountability, right? When you know that you're not going to achieve something, it's not just the fact that you're not going to achieve it, but then you are equally accountable to letting people know that it's going to be hard to do it. So I think that point definitely would strike a lot of chord with our listeners today. And on that note, that brings us to the end of this great episode on Go-To-Masters. And big thanks to you, Jesse, for sharing your experience and valuable insights. And remember, folks, you can tune in every week to learn more from game changers driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Go-To-Masters is brought to you by Everstage, your trusted partner for transforming the way businesses handle sales compensation. I'm your host, signing off. Thank you.